Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30th webinar, I believe. Wow, come quite a long way. And we're going to be looking at the future of marketing. It's quite a big topic. No, it's not going to be that bad. We're basically going to take 4 topics that are for scenarios that are starting to happen or have been happening and may well impact how we market our businesses going into the future. Some have really been brought forward by COVID as well. So it's quite, it's been an interesting experiment really with COVID on many different fronts, but certainly for marketing as well and how people are now working and buying online. So we're going to look through those, and I've got 4 lovely guests. I'll get them to introduce themselves. Maybe we can start with Nicky first and then move around the room.
Hi, I'm Nicky Ayers from Ecl-ips CCTV. Well, I only said that because it's got Ecl-ips CCTV written on my little icon. However, we do CCTV, access control, intruder alarms and IP monitoring. And we help everyone who has those systems, but mainly we do education, manufacturing, distribution, and we're moving into the market of country house mansions.
Oh, yeah. You know, the reason I put that is because I just put clips. It doesn't really say enough about what you do, so I have to have a little hint. But if I put everything that you do, your title is far too long.
Got a whole long list.
I know. Yeah, you've got some interesting projects actually. Certainly the country mansions, which are pretty big. They are big, like business-sized projects.
Yeah, they're huge. Like we're talking 2,500, 3,000 acres.
Wow.
Yeah, they're massive. Yeah,
and
really
actually
intense.
Quite interesting from a privacy point of view as well with the CCTV, because they cover a lot of, they're looking onto a lot of public land or private land or different sorts. So you've got a lot of interesting issues there with privacy.
Definitely putting our bespoke systems to the challenge, because we've also integrated systems as well. So systems they've got like bollard in their car, in the entrances for car bollards and what have you, entrance, access control, that kind of thing. We've integrated all of it, even taken other systems on. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge for mainly Aaron, really. But, yeah, the lads doing the installations as well.
Thank you. Catherine, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Catherine. I'm Director of Pippin Copywriting. I'm a copywriter. I work with tech and professional services businesses to make sure that they get their message across effectively and create content that their audience likes to read.
Cool, excellent. And we've known each other for quite some time, a long time, in fact. And you've been very nice and referred us to a few people as well. So thank you very much for those. And, we've always had good feedback when we've worked on projects together about your copywriting. It's always been really good copywriting. It reads really well. There's lots of copywriting you can get that it fills a page, but it really isn't engaging at all. So it's always nice to work with you, Catherine, on stuff like that. So thank you.
Thank you.
John, would you introduce yourself?
I will. Jon Johnson, and I'm Director of Mountain Perspective, and we work in organisational development and change within a number of sectors, manufacturing, agriculture, and the third sector charities, where we work with teams. And our big model really is taking them up into the mountains and giving them a fresh perspective of their business.
And I've been on one of those. I think I cajoled you into taking a few clients. Was it Nick from Astute, Alex from Communion Architects? Almost. Yeah. Was there someone else? Was it that just us?
I think it was, just the 3, yeah.
And it was excellent, because not only do we get to go for a walk, which is always nice, but throughout the way, John is sort of walking between different people, having little conversations about business, and it's quite interesting. Because you start off, we start off at the car park, and there's a certain challenge that we can either go the easy way or the hard way. And then as we make our way up, we realize that, actually the hard way is sometimes the better way, because you get better views out of it and things like that. Anyway, it's a really good walk. Although I forgot to bring my lunch. And I just had one chocolate bar, which wasn't the best thing to have for lunch. So I was a bit unprepared for that.
Excellent. It was in the instructions as well, Ben. So,
I know.
Team building effort. I was
hoping for a pub lunch, frankly. Just didn't work out. So thanks very much. I put out a call for guests. You all responded, so thank you very much for that. And so I'm going to go through these scenarios, and I'm not expecting you to have all the right answers, so don't worry. I just want your thoughts on whether these scenarios are actually going to be problems or not. For those who don't know me, I'm Ben. Hello. I've worked with loads of businesses now, probably more than 500. It's very difficult to count. But we cover lots of different areas, from marketing strategy, web development, video, analytics, really getting to the data and trying to understand what's working. As most of you know me, I'm probably a bit of a jack of all trades. I'm very much interested in all of those things. Not necessarily an expert in all of them, but I do know other people who are experts and can bring them in on that. It's been quite interesting doing these webinars over the last 2.5 years now. It's been real eye-opener. And one of the things I've loved about it is it's forced me to learn, because I know every single month I've got to put on an hour webinar on some topic, whether it's something like this, where maybe I'm hoping that some of you guys will do some of the work, or one where I'm doing a walkthrough for that full hour of a particular piece of software, where I've got to try and cover that in 60 minutes, no more, no less. Sometimes they do run over. So it's been quite interesting to go through that process. And hopefully there'll be many more. Right, enough of that. Let's get on with it. So what could the future of marketing look like? Let's dig into these scenarios and discuss the impact. Now, actually, let me tell you where this idea came from. I was invited to a peer-to-peer networking group to talk to them. So this is a group of people who meet, I think it's once a month, same people every single month, and they'll talk about a particular idea. It could be a problem in their business. John, you'll be familiar with this sort of thing, getting business owners together. They talk about a problem in their business, and then they help solve it. They work together to help solve that. Almost like having your own board of company directors. And I was invited to go and talk to them, and they wanted to look at the future of lead generation. But I thought, well, there's so many things we can talk about. Let's look at it from the point of view of scenarios. What if this happened? Then how would it affect how we get leads? And actually, this is Nicky Barrell, one of our members, referred me into the group for that. So hopefully you're listening. Hello, Nicky, and thanks for that. So let's dive in. So the first scenario is that you don't own the platform. And that's quite broad. What I mean by that is you don't own the platform for sales. You don't own the platform for where your audience are. You don't own the platform for any of your marketing. Basically, you don't have any control over anything apart from what other platforms might give you. Now, I'll give you an example of what I mean by a platform. It could be a social network like Facebook, Twitter. It could be a shopping platform like Amazon. It's something else where you're doing business on someone else's platform. It could be an app store like Apple's App Store or Android Play Store. And the problem is that certainly new businesses, it's a very easy thing just to dive in and start using Facebook, start using Instagram to get customers, maybe even TikTok, because you can get a lot of engagement and you can get a lot of things happening quite quickly. Maybe with software you're already comfortable with because you're using it personally. Why not just use it for business? And you might start to rely on it. You might start using advertising. So you're paying Google Ads or maybe even Yell to manage some advertising for you. And you're relying on someone else's platform. You're always paying someone else, or either in time or investment or money, to access the audience or access the sales pipeline. The problem with that is what happens if you are banned? What happens if their policies change and you can no longer sell or do what you were doing? What happens if your marketing process that's working really well suddenly changes because their algorithm changes and you've got to change with that? That's fine. Change happens in life, but what happens if this is a big company like Facebook, they make a change and you don't know about it because you're a small consideration to them. They're just sort of making a change across the board. I'll give you a couple of examples. This is, I won't mention who this is, and it's not really relevant, but this young girl here was knocked off Instagram or banned from Instagram because of some of the things she was doing on her posts. Nothing that serious as far as I could see in the reports or the news articles that I read. But basically, she went from 130,000 followers to nothing instantly and locked out of her account while the investigation was going on. It crossed some guidelines. Now, regardless of what it was, because I don't think it was certainly nothing illegal. It's going to be maybe what she was saying in their trigger words, flagging up the automatic systems that banned her. The problem she had is that she couldn't reach anyone to talk about it. So it just happened. Suddenly, she was not able to make a little bit of money through influencer sponsorship. It was her life, so she wasn't able to do her life. All of her, I won't say friends, but like her social life or elements of it just disappeared. And she couldn't reach anyone. And she went so far as to actually call the police because she didn't know who else to talk to. She really didn't know. And there's lots of videos where she started up another Instagram account. And, I think she's bounced back after that. But it's quite a big shock. Now, that's just a sort of minor influencer. I mean, what happens if that's your business and you become reliant on Instagram for sales coming through to your website? So that's one example. Then we've got these shopping platforms. So Amazon, eBay, Facebook has its own shopping platform. Shopify, which you might not know, is like a separate website platform, which is better because it's your own platform, your own website, but they're starting to integrate with these other platforms. And really what these companies want you to do is do everything with them. So they get the money and they have the control and they own the relationship with the customer and they control the market. And I know with Amazon, the problem you can get into there is that if you've got a product, it becomes successful. They have the ability, and they say they don't do this, but they have the ability to see what products are popular and to design products that meet those specifications and sell them under their own brand, Amazon Basics or whatever it might be. Or maybe even highlight that data to other companies and get some kind of kickback. So, the problem they have is they have a marketplace, but they also sell their own products as well. eBay are wanting to move from selling secondhand goods in an auction style environment. They want to be a shop. That's where they're trying to get to. I don't know if they're there yet, but that's what they want to be. And obviously Facebook Marketplace has all the audience. They just want to earn a bit of money through that. Fair enough. I totally understand it, but they own the audience. And another big problem, and I'll let you talk after this, is Apple App Store. I mean, it's great. It's really useful. You can just go to the App Store, find something, and there's millions of apps there. Find something that interests you, whether it's a game, productivity app, or just stories or films. You can find something there and buy it, and the developer will earn some money from that. The problem is, and it's a big issue for developers, is that they don't own the customer. So if they want to communicate with the customer, if they have another app that they want to start marketing to the customer, they can't do that in their own way. They've got a very limited way they can do it, maybe within the app. But if people aren't using the app, apart from notifications, which again are limited, they have no way of reaching out to that customer. Now, you might say as a customer, that's great. I don't want these people just contacting me, these developers contacting me out of the blue. But Apple holds all the cards here. And it's exactly the same with Google Play. And there's these two dominant stores where if you actually want to get on a mobile phone, these are the only places to go. They take a 30% cut. They control the market. They control the audience. So what happens if our world is like that completely? And it's starting to go that way. What do you feel about that? How does that affect your businesses or people that you know? I'll start with you, Nicky. You look like you want to say something.
From a business point of view, and the way that we do marketing here, I think it's every one of those that you've spoken about have got a place, but I don't think they necessarily need to be the main output. It's all about putting your eggs into one basket for me, and you can't do that. So you need different marketing streams. For the marketing strategy that we'd have here, we can't be tunnel vision. You've got to have various, because if you have various streams, it's safer. B, you spread the brand about, and C, you wouldn't have this problem. So from our perspective, it's a very small part that we would use what you've mentioned here, but we definitely wouldn't use that and rely on it. But we don't have to rely on it. If we're not an influencer, but an influencer would have to rely on Instagram. I understand that, because really that's the only place for them, or that they're really hot on Instagram, influencers. But for me, not having a backup plan, it's really about having that backup plan. And for us, the different streams of marketing is our backup plan. So we do, and it's also to complement everyone. So we do Facebook, we do a bit of Instagram, we do YouTube, we do various streams, but they're all kind of interlinked and they back one another up, rather than just doing the one stream that if that falls down, we're then, the history's gone, we haven't got the SEO anymore, and it would be a nightmare. So from our point of view, yes, to do a little bit of those, but not obviously in entirety, because it's that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, not relying on it. Jonathan, you've got something to say.
I think Ben, the key word that you used is relationship, and that's what we want with our customers, and that's what we're all looking for. And I think working with business advisors with small and startup businesses, that's where you kind of see the Facebook portal and places that people might want to start. But I think exactly what Nicky says is having that strategy, and I think where that comes from is around the budgeting. So it's around making sure that as you start to develop, so with a small company or a startup, we would be talking very much about the overall strategy. What is the end goal? Because you may well use all of these platforms and all of these facilities to get there, but it's about making sure you build that in and you're concentrating on that, because relationship is key. So, I mean, I'm sure you're going to laugh at this, but I think even more we're going back now to videos and email marketing to make sure that we're keeping those relationships going with customers for small businesses, because actually it's a really effective way of connecting and saying hi and keeping, on their profile. So I think it's a mixture of ways, isn't it? And I think the one I would say, even on the developer site, I've downloaded things from the Apple Store, and it's those developers that I've done some research in, and actually then I've looked on their websites and it's what else they offer. So it's not reliant on just that app. It's about what else they offer beyond that. So yeah.
Catherine, do you have anything?
I think that's exactly right. It's about forming that direct relationship with the with your customer. I think I saw on LinkedIn this morning the founders of, is it Hyatt Denim? I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but he's written an entire book on how they use their email newsletter to grow their business, and just talking directly to their consumer. So I think it is about diversifying where you're marketing and trying to get people off the platforms that you're advertising on and get them onto your mailing list so that you can target them directly. It also strikes me that we're talking about tech platforms now, but 30 years ago we could have been talking about supermarkets or your local shop. And if you can't get your product into the supermarket, how are you going to sell it? You've got to find a new way to do it. You're still now, as then, we're still reliant on big companies to get our names out there, to sell our products and grow our businesses. So I think it's interesting. It's a kind of new way of looking at an old problem, and it goes back to forming a good relationship with your customer, I think.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah, it certainly goes back to that. You might have had a local butcher, for example, and you go there, but then suddenly a supermarket opens up, and after the excitement's died down, it comes down to which is maybe more convenient, which do you prefer, quality, and there's lots of things like that. And unless that butcher is able to compete in a different way to that supermarket, because that supermarket is definitely competing on price often and convenience and bringing everything together. Yeah. But if you can trump that by having better quality, that better relationship, the fact that people love going there, the experience, there's something the supermarket is going to find difficult but not impossible to do. And yeah, absolutely, these things have been going on constantly.
Yeah, but it's also about the farmer who's supplying that meat. Is where do you want to go? Do you want to go to lots of little butchers, or do you want to go to one enormous supermarket? Which is the better for your business in the long run? It's isn't it?
Yeah. I think Ben, there's an element of trust to it.
Yeah.
And I think before you probably pressed record on this webinar, we were talking about actually the majority of us in business probably pick up our greatest work through word of mouth. And that is because of that trust. It is because of a recommendation. It is, I think probably we've all met through recommendations. And so I think that element of trust is something really key. And I know when you're going into international sales, you think, oh, how does that work? But actually, it's amazing that networking and that personal relationship of building trust, I think, makes a massive difference. So, yeah, it's an interesting dilemma.
It does, because those referrals are so strong. They'll cross boundaries. I mean, even on social media, referrals are incredibly strong. I think really fostering that relationship will power through. And it's what, we're going back to influencers again, or YouTubers. They're stuck. That's where they make their money, and they make the money on the platform by delivering on the platform. It's all tied in together. Well, the ones who are really savvy and are thinking ahead are looking at, well, what if YouTube changes something? What if I don't like their policy, which a lot don't anyway? They need to move out. So they're starting to set up merchandise elsewhere. So they're getting money from something else. They're moving to other platforms. Even if YouTube's the main place, they've got other platforms, and they can slowly bring people over for the core fans. And there's no reason why any business can't have people who are fans of that business and really like working with that business. And they're the ones who will be the engine for it going forward. We've got to move on from this. It's great. We could probably do the whole webinar on this sort of area alone. But the next one I'm going to look at is this. And the pandemic has certainly fueled the change here, is that people prefer to buy and work online. I think it's definitely has been the preference for a lot of people, that they do prefer, some people prefer to buy certain things in person. And they certainly prefer to go to work. But there are many people who've liked working remotely, certainly me. But also there's been a lot of people who've got a taste for it now, after having been forced to work from home and buy remotely. A lot of people like it because the experience is quicker, easier, certainly for some things. It's certainly if you're buying something regularly and you know where you're going and you like the experience and you don't want to talk to anyone, it's great. But the problems with this is that reduces commuting, which is great on one hand for CO2. It's bad for town centres or areas where people work, or the sort of transient shopping along the way, where people aren't going to buy things as they go to work, as they commute. Maybe their shopping habits will change. Rather than picking something back up from the way home from work, they'll do it after work, but locally. Now, I would argue there's a lot of positives here, but for town centres and other key places of work, that's a negative. Also, if you rely on that for marketing, and this kind of goes back to the previous one, but if you rely on passing trade and being visible, physically visible, how do people find out about you? Now, I've got a couple of examples here. So this one is a McKinsey report on how COVID and the time people have spent over the last year and a half being locked down, how that has affected business-to-business sales particularly. So not just some of the scenarios I said about people buying and commuting to work, but actually people buying for business. And it's over 70% of people now actually prefer to have remote interactions with a business, whether that's video like this, or perhaps even digital self-service, some kind of online shop or form where they can buy and fill out things themselves. Certainly for things where they know what they want, and it's an easier process to go through because it's easy from a scheduling point of view. They can fit that in a bit more easy. It's easier rather than driving somewhere. Certainly, we've done a lot of remote calls anyway, but obviously we've been forced to do everything remotely. There's a huge saving in terms of cost for travel. And for me, more so, cost in time. I'm saving that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours I could be traveling in a day. And then for some people, safety, obviously, they just feel safer in their house. This is an interesting report. I've got a link to it here. I'll try and make sure that's in the notes. It's worth reading. I know, Catherine, you had a look at this. It's quite an interesting report to look through in terms of just saying that actually people prefer to buy online. And this is slightly a different article, but quite interesting from in different ways, really. Apple, I mean, I'm a bit of an Apple fan, but Apple, one of the reasons they put to their the way they work so well together and come up with these innovative designs is that they keep all of their design and engineering teams in one place. So you get these chance conversations. It's very easy to bring people in and that sort of thing. Obviously, like the rest of us, they've been forced to work remotely, and they've been starting to ask them to come back a couple of days a week. 3 days a week, I think, and the employees have started to say no. So there are some people who have found it much easier to work from home. Maybe they've got a disability which makes travel into work difficult, and they've actually felt that they've been able to deliver everything and more over the past. Their new hardware, new operating systems. They've done all the program, everything they need to do remotely, and they've liked it. And so they're actually pushing back on their employer. And this is going to encourage people to stay at home more, spend money in the local area, and basically change where money is being spent. And I just think it's very interesting. I think that's all the only examples. Obviously, no coffee on the way to work. People will probably be making it at home and taking it in. So what do you think about that? How does that side of things impact business at all?
I think from my perspective, Ben, especially in the lockdown, obviously we did quite a lot of online Zoom meetings and things before. There were quite a few customers that were against it because they like that relationship, as I've described, and obviously that it pushed us down that route. But what we've certainly found is that you can get the right people together much quicker. So if I went into a company, I was trying to get a board of directors together, and that could take a month. It could be 6 weeks before the secretary could organize that. Whereas now digitally, you put out an email, you use whatever you're going to use. I won't name drop, but you use whatever you do for a poll. You put some dates out, and within minutes, you've got an answer back. And quite often within days, you've got meetings set up. So the efficiency from a business perspective has been, and the speed of making decisions has been much enhanced, I would say. Obviously, not time to travel, Ben, means you don't get so much time to listen to podcasts. So obviously, that's a down. But I'd certainly think, from my perspective, the efficiency in getting the right people in the right places. We've moved projects through probably in about 50% of the time, less time. Wow. By being able to run this rather than trying to get face-to-face meetings. You would quite easily lose a whole day with a board of directors by the time you've had coffee, you've done all the small talk. And online, they just don't do it. It's just straight into the agenda.
That's interesting. I've definitely found that that meetings are sharper because of that. And I don't know why. We're still sat down. We might have a coffee with us. We're still in front of a computer or something. So it is interesting that online meetings just feel generally quicker. Maybe it's easier to get away. I don't know. If you're actually meeting in a location, you're physically there. It's difficult to make your excuses and move elsewhere. But actually, remotely, I've always found that remote meetings are a lot sharper. What do you think, Nicky?
From our point of view, the last 18 months has really shifted our business because, for instance, we would do possibly 3 to 4 exhibitions a year, maybe. And so that marketing strategy there has had to be shifted to digital marketing. We're also offering online chat now. So like Jon said, you can get to speak to people and very quickly. And yeah, I found the turnaround of getting a meeting in the diary has been a lot quicker because it's literally, I'll send you a link. You just need to hop on that link and we're there, and I only take 15, 20 minutes of your time or something like that. And it will be that time, because I think when it's personal and you are there in person, face to face, I think there's a little bit of you feel like you need to have a chat. You feel like you need to be a bit more personable. Whereas, yes, I can see everybody on the screen, but actually it's not that personable. We can we're not ignorant, but if we came into a room and we literally went, right, what we're getting on with now, that would seem a little bit ignorant. Whereas when we're on a screen, it's kind of like, right, what are we here for? Let's get down to it. And it seems okay. And from a networking point of view, I've been able to carry on networking through, various mediums and what have you, and it's been great. But again, I think the awkwardness has been taken out of it with electronic networking, because here at the moment, the three of you could be huddled and you could be talking, and I could be thinking, oh, I really want to catch one of your attention and try and get in there to talk to you. Whereas actually at the moment, all three of you are looking at me, and I could just say, Ben, how about this? And you could just do that. So I've found it easier to network online. But it certainly is. It's interesting on the online chat because people are more susceptible to it, and they're more so than I thought they would be. Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. I think with networking, I found that too. I was comfortable I presented many things online, but actually networking, I hadn't tried that. And I know I ran a couple of experiments early on in the COVID, but couldn't keep up. I was quite busy, so I didn't have the time to keep it up. But of the ones I did do, is actually really good for everything you say, Nicky. Everyone was on a level playing field. You felt, for me, I'd feel awkward going into a room of people. Some people who know each other, you get these cliques. Yeah, it was actually a lot better doing that business online.
And I think you can get your information out much easier. So the virtual giving over your business card is more acceptable than the physical, if that makes sense. So you can actually put in the chat, "Oh, hi, I'm Nicky from Ecl-ips, and we do da 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 da. Give me a call if because that's literally giving your giving your business card over, isn't it? Whereas it's a little bit more acceptable when people can see it and they can actually take it or leave it, so they can actually pick it up if they want to. I found it great, and I love working from home as well.
Do you know what I liked about it? On a few that were a bit like 4N. Is it? No, not 4N. What's the other one where they do? They break you out into small groups and you get to talk to people. Can't remember, but some networking groups do that. Well, this one had a breakout group, so you're in groups of 2 or 3 or something like that. The nice thing is there's a time limit and it kicks you out, so you can't have someone who's bending your ear for that whole session. As nice as they may be, sometimes it's like, okay, that's enough about you.
You get to the end and you go, we're finishing in 10 seconds.
How about you, Catherine? Has that sort of remote work impact of businesses, do you think? I mean, I don't know if it's going to have impacted you, but have you seen it in your customers and how that's been working for them?
So I've worked remotely, as it were, for 10 years getting on for. So it absolutely works for me. I really enjoy it. What I found really interesting in the past year is that clients who I'd literally never seen, we'd only ever dealt with via email, and we probably hadn't even spoken on the phone at any point, suddenly we're desperate to leap on a Zoom call and say, have a conversation. And we're like, well, hang on, it's really nice to meet you, but it's really interesting the way everybody kind of realised that remote working really can work, and it is immensely productive and works really well. I think what's interesting is that it's all very well for me, and I've got a dedicated office in a nice house with a nice garden. I really feel for those people in the past year who've been working in a shared house at the bottom of their bed, or they're working in a cramped flat, and there's two husband and wife sitting next to each other trying to work and trying to get time in a small flat centre.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask.
Exactly. It's all remote working is lovely if you've got the setup for it, and I can I think it's an interesting, for every person that is desperate not to go back, there's almost certainly somebody who is desperate to go back because they're going slowly crazy in a small flat without a balcony. So it's I don't know how it will resolve itself and where we're.
Ben, I think just to speak back to one of the first comments you made in your slide was around the town centres and the city centres, and I'd urge the fact that actually that was happening 5 years before the pandemic. And I think ultimately, and having been quite heavily involved with a local authority, they've been looking at how to deal with that for quite some time. And what you are finding is a lot more independents are popping up. And I come back to why does that work and why do people attend? And a lot of it comes back to that local trust relationship, feel like they belong. Because actually a lot of those high street big chains that, were very top heavy are and have disappeared. And so, and you're buying on Amazon and eBay for the last 5 years has just become the norm for a lot of people. Your online Tesco shop, it's just been the norm. And so I think that change, I also think there's an age thing. And I know that sounds really funny, but I think for younger people, I look at my children who are kind of early teens, and they've never known kind of going into the town on a Saturday and doing the shopping. I mean, it's just not been something that they've ever had the concept of. I mean, and if you certainly buy something, I think this was another point that I made a note of. Certainly, if you buy something and you buy it on Amazon and you've got Amazon Prime and it's with you tomorrow, almost that's the expectation we've got. I've just ordered something from a shop and they said it was going to be 10 days. And the shock on my children's face when they're going to have to wait 10 days was like, well, is it coming from China or which boat's it stuck on? And so I think it's evolving, and I think there is a big place for businesses, for local independents with the city centres to have a real mark and to make a difference. But they're gonna end up being places for socialising, because that's the bit that we're missing. We're working at home is the social entity. I think you'll find a lot more coffee shops, and I'm talking to businesses at the moment that are opening up, kind of your Costa, but with proper dedicated workspaces with quiet booths in them. So you can go have your coffee, you can chat to people, but then you can also sit on your computer for an hour and do some work as well in privacy. So I think they were changing already, and I think we'll see further change.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just accelerated the process, and maybe certainly kicked the older generation down that digital road too. I think the younger generation would have forced it there anyway, because it is convenient. And you're right. It's all about having that relationship. Certainly when it comes to food or produce quality. I know that one of our destinations when we're going to Cirencester or Lou happens to be on the way, and I send her a note. Can you get this Rave coffee beans, please? And I send her to there, because that's as far as I know the best coffee that I can buy around here, or that she'll go to the local butcher. Because it's better. There's some more, you understand, you have a relationship, you know where it's coming from. You could get it at Tesco, Waitrose, wherever, but actually I'd rather spend that money locally. You start thinking about it a bit more, because you have a relationship, and it does come down to that. Certainly you need it, and become a destination, places where people want to go. And it's funny, I always look around at any sort of event, and the things that do well at events are food and drink, because wherever people are, they will want to eat. And so usually, however bad the event is, even if it's not going well, people will want to eat. So it's always a good thing to be doing that. Let's look at the next one. This is interesting. So search is voice only. So the scenario is we aren't at computers typing into Google, getting a list of results. We're not scanning to find the best, sort of negotiating the ads and trying to going in and out of websites. We don't do any of that. We ask the air, we speak to Alexa, Siri, Google Home, and we ask them to solve our problem. Now, I'm not just thinking a little bit more of an advancement of where we are now, but conversational search. So we say, hey, Siri, can you find me a book about this, which was written about 20 years ago, and it's got these illustrations by this person. It might come back after doing cursory search. So, I've got a few here that match something based on these profiles. It obviously knows a little bit about you, so it can start refining it based on what it already knows you like reading. And so you start having a conversation with that artificial tool. But you don't see any results. You aren't scanning results. You aren't used to those Google results, which is how it works quite well at the moment. So being first in Google search becomes a lot more important, because you're more likely to surface. And this is happening already for some results, that being first becomes, it will read out the first result. Would you like me to read it anymore? No, thanks. I've got the one I need. I don't need to see anything else. So visibility changes. It's more convenient if you are in the car, or you're jogging, or you're cooking, you're hands-free. You've got your wireless headphones of some sort, which will probably become more commonplace. That people might. I sometimes walk around with one of them in my ear all the time, because they feel like nothing. You hardly hear them, and they get smaller and smaller. They'll be like implants. You'll be able to ask for anything wherever you are. So how do we get found still? If that is how people are searching, and AI is doing all the filtering for us, and we're not able to do that, is that still an issue? I think it's crucially important that not only people search, but they receive the results by voice. So not only does the data you have to put on screen be or the metadata you sort of feed into your website or various online profiles, it has to be something that is enticing by voice. It doesn't just have great imagery, because you might not be able to see anything. And also you can't scan. I think that's incredibly important. Do I have another one here? Oh yeah, so this was an interview a couple of years back with a guy called Wayne Forrester, and he was talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and augmented reality, and how sort of these how things are changing. They're definitely moving that direction. And so we are going to rely much more on data sort of floating around us or listening to it. And we're not going to sit at a computer or even a mobile phone and have the same experience with the search results. So he was talking a lot about that, and also there's a solution, but I'll come back to his particular solution to it later. But my thoughts are is, how do we, or my question is like, if that happens and we are just talking to the air and asking our assistants to give us all the information, how does that impact how we get found online?
I suddenly feel like a technophobe, Ben, because I never talk to Siri. So there you go. I'll let the others answer the question.
Why don't you talk to Siri? Let's ask that first. So why don't you?
I think actually it is an interesting question. I think I like to see the results, and I think I'm probably, I know I'm not old. I promise I'm not that old. Maybe I am that old.
You'd make me old if you said you're old.
But I think that for me, actually, the typing of what I'm looking for is a part of the process of my brain, and therefore I wouldn't ask the question in the same way as I would to a person. So I'm trying to linguistically try and get it right for Siri to pick up. So it feels weird to me. Yeah. And I guess that's the only thing I can describe really, is it feels weird. But also from my perspective, if I was to go onto Google to do a search, it depends what you're looking for, but I quite often don't go to the top hits, and because of the ads and the different pieces, so I will scroll down to find more information. So I wouldn't actually trust that what they were bringing was everything that I could have the options of. So there we go.
I think I draw a distinction between what you're searching for. So I mean, I don't know about you, but when we're watching TV, we're kind of, how old is he, or who's he married to, and whose child is that, and so. I think I don't use voice search either, but I could see that would be incredibly useful, because there is basically a right or wrong answer. You just need one piece of information. That actor is 57. That's all you needed to know. If you're trying to search for, like recently, I've been trying to search for a pair of shoes to wear to a wedding. I don't want the top result necessarily. I want to explore loads of different results. I don't want Google to do that work for me, to tell me these are the shoes you need to buy. I want to be in control of that process, looking at all of the results and making those decisions myself. And as you say, not necessarily looking at the top result, but scrolling on down to see what else is out there.
So what are you looking for? What do you think when you want that additional all those results? How are you refining it when you're going through? What are you looking for? What filters are you applying mentally as you flick through and decide whether do you click or don't click on a particular item?
So like John, I'm using the active typing to work out how to refine my search for what it is that I'm looking for. And then actually I'm probably deliberately not looking at the top result, because I will assume that's by a big retailer who understands how search works and has made sure that they do appear number one, whereas actually I don't necessarily want the big brand. I want the niche brand, or the local retailer that's selling something, who maybe doesn't know the system as well. And so they might be further on down the search. And so I think it depends. It depends what you're looking for, I think when it comes to finding a perfect shoe, for example, your next shoe, you want a shoe. There's different reasons you want one. Sometimes there's a need. Your shoe is actually worn through and your feet are touching the pavement as you walk. That's, there's a desperate need there, and actually you don't care what the shoe is. It's a special occasion. You're going somewhere and you need a particular shoe for a particular, and it then matters how important that is. Now, would certain things like referrals factor into this? So if a friend said, you said to a friend, "Oh yeah, I'm going to this wedding and I'm looking for some shoes to match this," would referrals then kick in at that point as well? Yeah, definitely. So referrals from friends, but also referrals from articles you might have read in the paper about a certain brand or something like that. There's so many different criteria that you're considering that Google couldn't possibly know about and Siri couldn't possibly know about. And at the moment, you think that now, probably do.
Yeah, Ben, that's quite interesting as well, though, because the whole reviews thing, just thinking about it as you're chatting, Catherine, I'm thinking I'm always looking at those yellow stars as well. And I will always go through them, and you can't necessarily trust them. But that does give me an indication as to whether I really trust that product or not, and what other people have said about it. So, yeah, I'll be trying some more voice buying later.
I think you've got different ways that you've been discussing that though. So both of you, John and Catherine, have just mentioned visual searching and what have you. But when you go for the likes of Google or Alexa or anything else Siri, then it's more of an audio search, isn't it? So I was just thinking it would be really good and really funky if you did a search on Alexa. Say, for instance, we do a lot of videos, don't we? But wouldn't it be really good if the company actually, if it says, oh, we need CCTV systems in Bromsgrove, and then Aaron or I or whoever in the team pipes up on Alexa and says, hi, this is Aaron from Ecl-ips. We can help you with CCTV. Give me a call on da-da-da-da-da. So that needs to be more of an audio message coming from one of those devices, doesn't it? That's really taking.
That's true. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, I was thinking more making sure that we're present on those search devices, that we've got enough data that, let's say, in the future, whenever that may be, and conversational AI that's able to actually talk to you, ask questions, respond, and have something come back with intelligent results. It would just be spoken, but actually, there's no reason why you couldn't then inject other audio snippets in there. And says, well, I can play some audio from the managing director. He can tell you about it himself.
Yeah,
that's an interesting idea.
And the chatbot idea is already there, isn't it? I mean, it's not, to a certain degree, it's only taking it to that next level of you searching for it and asking the questions to actually it being audible. Yeah. And
that's the easier bit, I'd imagine. Converting text to audio is easy enough, and it sounds very good. The way the voice sounds is it's about getting it to be smart enough that we trust it. And I think that's where I come from. I do try, certainly asking who's in that film or certain facts, very easy generally. But when it comes to searching for niche items, it's not there yet. But it will get there. I don't doubt it will get there. It's just how our habits will change. And, this is where we are now. But you give it 3-5 years, and this technology has advanced probably quite significantly, where we're able to do this. And we're seeing our kids go on and do these searches, which they're already, rather than typing, that's lazy, boring. Who wants to do that? They just press the microphone button and talk at it. And they don't need to worry about spelling. So it's a lot, they're already on that route anyway. And I just think it's just something to look out for in terms of that. I don't think it will affect a lot of all of our businesses really, but certainly if you are in the business of being the very top result, and you need to be because people aren't researching, then it's absolutely quite key. Right. Oh, we're doing really well. So last 15 minutes, let's have a look at this last one, which is happening again now. Tracking is dead. So in marketing and advertising, and since the web really has been around, marketers and advertisers have tried to collect every bit of data they possibly can in order to help them understand what's working and what's not. And in many cases, they believe they need all of that data, whatever it may be, in order to make decisions. Facebook have been told off a lot for over collection of data, mismanagement of that data. They collect a lot of information about what you do on Facebook, but also have been collecting about what you do off Facebook. So any website that had a Facebook embed on it would know that you've come to that website. If you're logged into Facebook, they know you've been to that website. And then when you go to Facebook or any other site and they serve you ads through the Facebook system, it's got a really good idea about you. But it could probably glean just as much information of your habits on Facebook if you spend that time. And all of them have been doing it. Sharing data between each other. You've got transactional data from credit cards where they can sell, they'll sell that back to those data aggregation companies who will then sell it back to everyone else, and merging data together so you can cross-reference emails, phone numbers, names until you have a big data pool and you can really understand someone's true habits, probably better than they understand themselves. And I'm sure you've heard lots of news items in that. However, this is really coming to a head quite rapidly, actually, where these sort of things are being shut down. Apple are leading the way in some respects, but obviously the European Union with GDPR as well. They've been, that was a big hit in the right direction. I don't know if it's actually managed to do what they wanted to do, apart from annoying people with cookie pop-ups. But the general trend is we don't want to have this excessive tracking. And I think in some cases we're quite happy for people to know what we've bought and where we've been, if it will help a service be better. But we want to know that's happening. John, you wouldn't want me following you everywhere, just because I'm around and it might be useful to me, But if it helped me give you better suggestions and maybe recommend clothes to you because I know who you've been talking to and what you've got coming up in your diary and that sort of thing, of course you might want that. And trust comes into that a long way as well. So what's been happening is that browser cookies have been slowly getting more difficult. GDPR has stopped people really using cookies so much, but if they do, they're being limited in how long they last for. They're being limited in not working over domains. So it means that Facebook can collect data about you on its site, but it shouldn't be doing it on other people's sites. Email programs, they're hiding your opens and clicks. So when you send someone an email, you may not know if that person's actually read your email or not because their email is just not reporting it. And it comes back to how do we target them? If we can't track people on the web and we can't track people in email, social media, wherever it might be, how do we know we're getting the right people? How can we advertise to the right people? And also a sub question, and I'm very interested in this, is do we need to collect so much data? There are a lot of companies that just will collect everything. And it's been easy to do so. But actually, do we use it? Or does it become a liability having all of that data? Is it responsible to collect it? Or should we actually say, no, I only need to know their name and email. And if they give it to me, then I'll track it and I'll use that for specific purposes, rather than all this additional information, which is just being collected and not used and becomes a liability down the line. A couple of things to look at. So there's this email program called Hey, H-E-Y. And one of the things that they brought, this launched last year. One of their key features, or two key features actually, one is quite interesting. But the first one is a cookie or a tracking pixel blocker. So basically, if you use their email system, then and you receive a marketing email, it will block any tracking pixels. So that marketing company won't know that you've opened it or read it. But also, if there are any images in there, it will proxy those as well. So that marketing company can't even look at the images you've loaded to see what your IP address is and try and match that back to your email and so on. So they're really trying to limit that. And the other thing they've got, which is quite interesting, is the screener. So this is where you are able to screen emails. So John, let's say you send me an email. I don't know you. Send me an email. You will end up in my screener and you'll just be a little line of text here. And I'll say, oh, John wants to email me. He sent me an email. And I can either say yes, which means you come through into my inbox, or I can say no, and I never hear from you again, but you know nothing about that. It gets delivered to Hey and just sits there and gets deleted after 30 days. It's a bit like spam, but it's a special box. It's not automatic. It's no AI. It's basically, I said, no, I don't want to hear from John ever. Gone. And I never hear from you and you don't know anything about it. It's quite interesting. But if you say yes, it actually whitelists you and you'll always come through. So in some ways, you don't have that problem, sometimes going into spam, sometimes not. You will always come through or you always not. So there's some real benefits there. But start thinking about how, from a marketing perspective, does this impact us? And the other one is in Safari. Actually, in a recent Apple keynote, they did mention that their mail program would soon have this tracking pixel blocking as well. So from in the autumn next year, this year when it launches, they will also be blocking. And you can imagine how many people are using Apple Mail by default on their iOS device or their Mac. So suddenly there's going to be, there's about 1 billion devices that they've got. Let's say half of those are all up to date. Suddenly there's a lot less traffic being reported back to our email programs. With Safari, they're doing some quite clever things on cookie blocking. So they're really limiting third-party cookies to that same day only. So if there is some tracking, it's just allowed on that same day. After that, the cookie is held, but is unable to. The third party isn't able to look at it, and then it's deleted. So it's really limiting it down. And I imagine that's just going to disappear soon. That's called intelligent tracking prevention. It also gives a privacy report. So in the little image, you've got a shield. If you click on that, you can see how many trackers are present on that website. And that's to embarrass companies into reducing the amount of tracking they've got on their site. And the other thing it's going to be introduced again in the autumn is like a virtual private network, like a VPN. But it's going to be applied by default to every single person who has a paid plan of their iCloud. So if you pay to get additional storage space on iCloud for your children's photos, you're going to be automatically enrolled into this. And what it does is it hides not only your IP, but also what web pages you were going to look at. And then if you're running over HTTP, all your traffic's encrypted. So Apple won't know what you're looking at, and no one on the internet will know who you are or what you were looking at. So it's kind of really bringing a big door over all of that data. It's just suddenly shut off and no one can use it anymore, which is great from a data privacy perspective, and really limiting it. I think it's fab. We haven't got much time left, but maybe what do you think about that from a tracking point of view? Does it bother you? Is it a problem? And if so, how do we get around it?
I think from my point of view, it's kind of interesting. I think we, as marketers, it's our responsibility to say that and kind of persuade people that we need their data for something useful. And I agree, you can take too much data, but as long as you're taking a sensible amount of data and using it properly, then actually it's incredibly valuable. If you took away all the personalization that you get on the web and the emails that you receive from companies, so even just as simple as a clothing company knowing that you're interested in children's clothes, for example, you don't want to receive anything else from them. If they can't target you like that, they'll just have to send you spam, which will not be interesting to you, and is of no use to you, whereas they can tailor something that is genuinely interesting and useful to you. So I think as marketers, we've got a responsibility to say we're collecting this data so that we can help you more and deliver you a better service, rather than just spamming you because we've got no idea what you are interested in. So yeah, I think it's on us as marketers to make a case for data, and data being a good thing.
Yeah, and it is
data being a useful thing that is beneficial.
That's right. And it's a shame it's come to this, hasn't it? It's because of the bad behaviour of many advertisers and data aggregators that it's come to this. But you know, many people are good and they don't abuse it. Yeah.
But I
Jonathan,
also wonder how interested people. I mean, how many of us go to a website and then you're just like, yeah, fine, and you click the accept cookies notice. You don't give it a second glance. You just accept that you're going to have cookies, and that's fine. And so I do wonder how concerned people really are about that. You know, in theory they are, but in practice they'll click past the data notice because they just
and I think that's why it has to be easy, doesn't it? You don't want to have to click no. It should be no by default, and yes if you need something. So if you want that free book, or you want a voucher or something like that, then absolutely, then that's the trade. But it shouldn't be that they get to take it before asking. Jonathan, I think you wanted to say something.
Well, no, the only point I was going to make is it comes down to the privacy policy as well. How many people actually go on to sites and click accept without reading the data policy? Because actually they can't be bothered to read through all the information that's on there. So actually, if you are then being tracked, ultimately you are signing up to these things. So I think to a certain degree, you know, I got quite frustrated for a lot of my businesses that I work with when the whole GDPR kicked off, because there was an element of a lot of work that was being done for a few people really that were collecting this data and using it incorrectly. Whereas the majority of the businesses that I would work with wouldn't, you know, do that. So I understand it, but I do think to a certain degree it's a consumer question as well, as to as marketers, as Catherine said, should our privacy policies be much more simple and upfront with what they're actually signing up to? And actually, as consumers, we need to get into a habit of actually looking at what information people are taking, because I can guarantee, I know I'm quite hot on it, but I know sometimes I'll just click on something because I'm like, I just need information, and I have no idea what I've clicked. So, you know, that's down to us as a user, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard work, definitely. Nicky, what about you from Ecl-ips's point of view? Do you think it's a problem?
Yeah, most certainly if we couldn't get data. I agree with Catherine, though. I don't think companies need to be greedy about the amount of data that you collect. So really, what is effective data is a person's name and their email address. You don't actually need their phone number at that point. Whereas, you know, there's plenty of things that I've had to fill in recently just to get, you know, a quote or whatever, and they want you inside leg measurements, and it's kind of like you don't need anything other. You just need one way of contacting me, and that's all you need. And then if we do business elsewhere, or or I choose to want to do some more business with you, I'll give you my mobile number at that point.
Yeah.
But I think we can probably gain trust. I think it's all about the trust element as well. I think we can gain a little bit more trust by asking for a little less, giving a bit more, asking for a little less, and then I think you'll get the data that you need. And we've certainly looked at that, Ben, haven't we, with the websites that we're doing and we're looking at, and we're trying to give the quotes without at every interval saying, what's your name, what's your mobile number, what's your email address, and trying to get as much as you can, because really it's not efficient and it's not effective for you. So just have one medium of getting in touch with somebody, and then that's enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what you said is great. And I think it stitches all of them together is trust. That if you have trust, it can overcome, and a relationship, it overcomes all of these issues. Thank you. We've reached the 1 hour mark, so I'm going to quickly run through the last things, and then we are finished. So what can we do about it? Well, I think strong brand, that is, for me, that's trust. That's building that trust element, and making sure you're consistent in what you deliver. With the social platforms, a key is really going out to social platforms, but not relying on them, inviting people back to your house is the way I think about it. So, you're meeting them where they are, bringing them back to your place, which is a website or, a phone or YouTube, Zoom or whatever, your office, wherever your place is, wherever you do your sales. But I think that's quite key. Tribe marketing, I've mentioned this before, but working together. So not just trying to do all the marketing yourself as a company or in a team in a company, but actually working with other companies as well. And leveraging their particular audience, because again, that's trust is imparted between those audiences. But if you do that, make sure you're trying to refer as well, so you're not just taking all the good stuff from the relationship. Use video, trust and personality. I mean, coming back to like local food shops about being good quality, often it's down to personality as well. They're just funny. They're just really nice people there. You just like hanging out. It's social. I think, Jonathan, you said that, it's social. That can come across in personality, whether you're funny or not. You will bring together a group of people who like you, and also giving away. We're talking about giving things away, just taking a bare amount of information. But if you are going to give some people something, make it useful, fun, valuable. I'm going to come back to this one, but remarkable. We're talking about search and searching by voice. There's something called structured data. So if you want to start preparing for voice searches, and also possibly maybe impacting on your SEO, it's very small at the moment, is making sure you do tag and mark up your website with this additional schema or structured data. And you can find out more about that. What I recommend you do is actually have a listen to the interview with, I was going to go Dwayne Dibley, but that's a completely different thing. Dwayne Forrester. Dwayne Dibley. Dwayne Forrester, who was, is really good. He talks about why it was developed and what is useful now, particularly in voice and AI search and augmented reality. It's going to be really useful for that. So have a listen to that. It will give you a more understanding about what it is and why it's useful, and also how to implement it. And also I think I did a bit more about structured data in my 5-star webinar, which was back one of the first few. I can't remember what number it was, 3 or something like that. So have a look back on that. And finally, I think really you just want to be remarkable. You want to be someone or a company that people just have to tell other people about. So whatever you do, whether it's email, social, video, whatever you're creating, makes people really want to be part of it, to watch it, to read it, to share it, because otherwise it's just, you're a loser, as Seth Godin says, and there's no point being a loser. I'll skip that. You've probably all seen it before. If anything has sparked an idea, write it down now. Make sure it happens. I think it's always important just to try and take something away whenever you're sort of you're listening, learning, you're taking something from someone else, just to take that spark, even if they didn't inspire it, but you, while I was warbling on in the background, you had an idea. Write it down and do something about it. If you like this webinar, do tell your friends. We can get them a free session if they want to try it out. You can come in as a guest. Tons of information. As I said, I've done 30 webinars now on lots of different topics. Oh yeah, please do let me know if there are any topics you want covered, because There are so many different areas, and I'm covering the ones that I want to cover, but I'm sure there's other areas that you want to cover as well. Thank you, everyone. John, Nicky, Catherine, thanks very much for your time. It's been really good to hear your answers, and they were along the lines that I was hoping, which is brilliant. Do come along to the next club session, and I'm trying to get people to join in as well, so that might happen a bit more. It's going to be on the 20th of July at 1 p.m. If you need anything, I'm on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.
Thanks, Ben.
Now I'm going to try and shut this thing off because I don't know how the interface works. So see you all later. Bye.
Bye.